to now switch a little bit to another local topic, and I want to talk a little bit about the Poway Voices Facebook group. And this is kind of an expansion on what Chris Cruz has done with her South and North Poway Votes group. It's kind of a community leaders, and they're this Poway Voices piece is really trying to address the tremendous amount of development that's going on in Poway that has so many people upset. Whether it's the development on Poway Road, or it's the development at the farm in Poway, or it's development along Twin Peaks, there's been a lot of housing construction. And a lot of people are angry about it. They don't want to see any more of it. They want Poway to be like it was in 1972. And so we're seeing more kind of heated propaganda coming out from a lot of anti-growth people, anti-housing, anti-development, really upset with the Poway Lifetime Fitness Project. And as a result, we saw in the Poway Voices group, Chris Cruz explaining the history of Prop FF in Poway, which goes back to the late 1980s, when our, quote, founding fathers of Poway, Bob Emery and the whole group there back in the 80s, had wanted to prevent Poway from becoming like another Claremont or another Mira Mesa. And so they have put forward a ballot initiative to make certain portions of Poway that you couldn't change the zoning just by the city council voting on it. In order to change zoning laws in Poway, they wanted the people to weigh in. And as a result, this has caused a lot of issues in Poway. There's been a lot of development that hasn't occurred in North Poway, because that's where a lot of this zoning was applied for Prop FF. And then, of course, on Poway Road and other places, Prop FF didn't apply, which I thought was odd. You think it would apply to the whole city. But at any rate, just bringing up Prop FF and where you can build, where you can't build, property rights, etc., was kind of broken down by Chris Cruz. And I just kind of felt it was necessary to say again what I think is really an important issue. And you'll see it on the screen. I commented that zoning laws like Prop FF, which prevent development and are pervasive throughout the state, are why we have a housing crisis. And in my opinion, this is very true, because NIMBYs have been resisting development. And this has been going on for a long time, like for decades in California, particularly in the last 2 decades, where there's been resistance to housing. And we've seen housing prices go through the roof, not just for purchasing real estate, but also for rentals. And it's because there's not enough inventory. And I think sometimes people just don't understand that. But we got a response here from Eric Weller, who's one of the leaders of the Poway Voices group. And he said, John, I would think that homes being used for the single highest source of investment and income, thereby driving up rents and mortgage beyond people's means, and often by investors only looking to make money, is why we have a housing crisis, or at least in the top 2 or 3 reasons. Now, this is what you see a lot in a lot of issues that are going on in society, where people are in denial about market forces and supply and demand and the behavior of what people do in an economy. Here again, blame the rich, blame the investors, blame greedy people. Okay, I want to break this down because this is important to understand. Are property owners jacking up the price of their house? Yeah, well, because the market is such. You can get a lot more for your house now than you did 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even 3 years ago. And at the same time, rental prices are sky high. San Diego is one of the most expensive cities to live in the world because of our housing crisis. Prices are just insane. The reason is because when you go looking to buy a house, there are very few available for sale. When you go to rent an apartment or rent a house, it's not like you have a selection of 20 or 30 of them in a particular community. There are very few available. So it's natural for property owners and landlords to, they set their prices based on the market conditions. Just like if you were going to try to sell your house, you're going to try to maximize the price that you get for that house. And if it turns into a bidding war amongst buyers, as a seller, you're going to say, okay, great, because that's what the market condition is. But it seems that for some reason people lose sight of that. They just think it's just greed, 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 when in fact, people that are property owners today are going to maximize the sale of their house. The thing is that when there is not enough inventory on the market, and real estate agents will tell you this, when there's not enough listings available on the market, you get 10 or 20, potential buyers all bidding on that one property because there's so few available. That's why they get into bidding wars. That's why homes are selling above asking price. And the same dynamic exists with rentals. So, is it because, as Eric said, um, that homes are being used as the single highest source of investment? Well, first of all, that's been true for a long time, but we haven't seen prices radically increase, except like in the past probably 10 to 20 years, right? But homes have been people's major nest egg for middle class Americans going back decades, going back to when I was a kid and before that. Have investors owned property in the past? Yeah. Do they own more property now? Yeah. I looked it up. Apparently, 25% of properties in San Diego are owned by investors. That seemed really high to me. I don't know if that's 25% of the recent purchases or 25% of all property. It's got to be the recent ones. But you might have to ask yourself a question. Why are investors getting involved in real estate? Well, the reason is because the return on investment is so great. Investors love this because the prices are going up, up, up. The value of the property is increasing. If they're renting it out, they can get more for the rent. Investors are benefiting from the NIMBY regulation laws like Prop FF, like some of the other initiatives that are being discussed in other cities. When government officials and authorities restrict the amount of development that can occur, then existing property owners enjoy the fruits of all of that. We're the ones that enjoy, skyrocketing prices. And so investors are just getting on the bandwagon, and the system is rigged for them, particularly when government restricts development and thus limits supply. So in my opinion, yeah, are investors playing a role here in the housing crisis in San Diego? Yeah. Are people have a lot of money, of their own money, tied up in their homes? Yeah. But if there was a lot more inventory, a lot more competition in the market, then you're going to put more, how should I say, more power in the hands of the real estate buyer or of the renter. When they have a wide range of choices to select from, then those landlords, those property owners are going to have to adjust their price to meet market conditions. So if you go back and look at the source of the river on how we ended up here, it's because there's been so much resistance to housing development in Poway, in San Diego, throughout California, and frankly, in a lot of parts around America. So it's just funny how this myth seems to continue to be pervasive, that it's greed, it's rich people, it's investors, but no, it's just the market conditions. And if you were a landlord, if you were a property owner, I'll bet you any money that you would want to get maximum value for your property. So we'll see how this all thing continues. The Poway Lifetime Fitness Project is going to go before the Poway City Council on July 16th. And we're going to hear from our city council members. I don't know if city officials are going to offer their recommendation on that particular project, but we're going to find out more about that soon. I'm generally I'm in favor of the Lifetime Fitness in the farm in Poway for a number of reasons. Number one, in my opinion, property owners should be able to build on their land, their property, their choice. At the same time, I think it looks like a pretty nice facility with a lot of amenities and services that are interesting to me and my family. And we've commented on that. And I think it's also going to be a nice upgrade. So I'm generally in favor of it, but it's probably going to have to go to a vote. We're going to see a vote on this at some point. That's assuming the city council in Poway, takes the recommendations and then does their due diligence, but they're likely not going to just rubber stamp it and approve it. They're going to put it out to the voters. And then we're going to find out. My hunch is that even though Measure P, passed in 2020, My hunch is this is going to fail because the voters are upset because they voted on one plan and now Kevin McNamara wants to change the plan. I think voters in general are just upset about all the development going on in Poway, and this is their one opportunity where they can say no. So we'll see. I mean, I think the burden is going to be on Lifetime to make a compelling case. It's definitely going to be a high end fitness facility that it's not going to be like a 24-hour fitness with really low subscription prices. This is going to cater to wealthy people. And those wealthy people aren't going to be the only ones voting on it. We're going to have people all over the city voting on whether or not this facility should go in North Poway. Tell me what you think of this. Drop your comment in the live chat on Facebook, on YouTube, or on X.